Hello everyone. Very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for joining today's session. My name is Vivin Satyan and I am the pre-sales consultant for the Active Directory team here at ManageEngine. Now this is going to be the second session in our ADManager Plus evaluation series. Now when I say evaluation series, this series here, this 2-week series is dedicated for our evaluators, people who'd like to know more about the application. Alright, so day one, yesterday we focused on a different set of topic. We focused on Active Directory management, and also we saw some of the crucial reports that you can generate using ADManager Plus without having to use PowerShell or any other complex methodologies. So that was the agenda for day one. Now day two, today we will be discussing a different set of topic within the application. We will be talking about Active Directory delegation, we will be talking about automation, and then workflow. So let me quickly dive into today's topics here. So this is what we covered in the last session. It was all about AD and Office 365 management and reporting. We saw something very crucial. The video of these sessions will be available to you, and we'll be able to share it with you in a day or two. All right, now day two. So I told you that we will be focusing on 3 topics. Now talking about the first topic, which is Active Directory delegation, I'm going to show you how to create customized roles within ADManager Plus and securely delegate those roles to other users in your Active Directory infrastructure. Automation is how can you automate the regular processes or the routine things that you do in Active Directory, something like user creation or user deprovisioning. So as and when users leave the organizations, their accounts need to be managed as well for security reasons. So you cannot leave the accounts as such. So how do you automate the process of deprovisioning accounts? Now the third topic is all about Active Directory workflow. Now workflow is going to be a request and approve methodology. So instead of the technicians or other users performing actions directly in Active Directory, what they do is if they want a specific action to take place, they raise a request to their higher level of approval. It can either be a line manager or an IT technician or an IT administrator. And the IT administrator reviews the request that has been raised. If the request is valid, the administrator approves, else the request is rejected with a reason. So I'm going to show you how things are done using ADManager Plus. Let me log in here real quick. So I'm going back to ADManager Plus right here, and I'm going to log in to the tool using my admin credentials. Now I would request you to log into your tool as well so that you would get a feel on what I'm talking about. Okay, now AD management, reports, yes, we have covered these 2 topics. Now we will be focusing on these 3 features: delegation, workflow, and automation. Let me start with delegation here. So I'm going to talk more about examples here. Rather than talking about the feature, you can relate to it in a better manner if I talk about a real-time use case. All right, so let's say you are going to add a user to the application. All right, now before talking about AD delegation, I'd like to tell you something here. Now the whole point or the benefit of using the AD delegation within ADManager Plus is, now this helps you achieve 2 things. All right, and what are those 2 things? The first thing is this AD delegation allows you to securely delegate tasks to other Active Directory users without having to elevate their native Active Directory permissions. For instance, if a user A has certain set of permissions in Active Directory, but you want him to perform an action that is not within his permission boundary, you can very well create a customized role within ADManager Plus for that action and then grant it to the user. And that is in no way going to alter the user's native Active Directory permissions. So the permissions that you delegate to the user will only be valid if the technician is logged into ADManager Plus. The minute he signs out of the application, his or her Active Directory permissions will still remain unaltered. Now that's the first benefit. Now, second benefit. When you have too many people logging into your domain controllers and then performing actions, or logging into your servers and performing actions, the task of administering or monitoring the actions done by those users becomes hectic. That becomes complex as well. So when you have too many users logging into your domain controllers and performing actions, you lose control at some point or the other. So in order to overcome all that, we have something called as delegation here. That's the second benefit of going with delegation. One is inappropriate permission assignment can be avoided. Second one, unwanted access to domain controllers by other users in your Active Directory infrastructure can be overcome using the delegation. That's why you need delegation here. So let me quickly talk about a role. So we have something called help desk roles right here on the left hand side. Now if you go to the help desk roles, you have some default roles. So as you can see here, create users is a role, move users is another role, reset password, unlocking user accounts. Now all these roles are nothing but actions that this role can perform in Active Directory. Alright, so these are the default roles that are available in the application. Now if you'd like to create your own customized role in order to map to a user, you just go to create new role here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a role for IT technician. Alright, so I'm just going to name it role for IT tech. Now I want this IT technician, or I want this role to be able to perform certain Active Directory actions. Now those actions are mentioned right here besides the checkboxes. Now all these checkboxes that you see here are the actions that you can map to this role. And the actions are categorized based on the objects here. So you have a category for user object, another category for computer, another category for contact object, and for group, mailbox, and even file server and Office 365. So it's just a matter of selecting the checkboxes here. Okay, now for this role, I want this role to create user accounts, reset password, and unlock accounts in Active Directory. So how do I grant those permissions? So I go to create users, it's right here. I want this role to create users one by one. Alright, that's checked. But I don't want this role to create users in bulk. So I'm just going to deny any bulk creation or modification for this role. So I have the checkbox right here which reads deny bulk modification or deny CSV import. So if I'm denying a CSV import, that in turn means this user cannot perform any bulk modification through a CSV. So yes, so I have checked on deny bulk modification. So I just want this role to create one user at a time. And the other restriction that I want to impose to this role is I want this technician to create users one at a time, but at the same time I don't want this user to be manipulating certain Active Directory attributes. So in order to restrict this role from manipulating certain attributes, I just go to user attribute privileges. Now the checkboxes that you see here are going to be the attributes that this role can control while creating a user account. Now if you don't want this role to be manipulating certain attributes, for example, I don't want this role to be manipulating the terminal service attributes. Alright, so what I do is I uncheck that. Excuse me. Now if I scroll down, I have a list of attributes that I can grant or restrict for this specific role. I don't want this role to have control over the link server attributes, so I uncheck. And I don't want this role to be manipulating, let's say, the email address. Where's email address? It's right here. So I uncheck email address. The same holds good for any other attribute as well. So you have contact, you have Office 365, you have Google Apps attributes. Now you just go ahead and define any attribute that you'd like to restrict or grant for this specific role, right? And then hit OK. So we not only grant a role or a permission to the role, we also restrict certain attributes so that this role will not have control over the attributes. So creation is done. I also want this role to be modifying user account, but I don't want this role to be modifying user account in bulk. So I uncheck, or I leave the checkbox unchecked. Okay. Now the second thing I want this, the next thing that I want this role to perform is to reset password for other user accounts. And also, if there are any locked out users, I want this role to unlock those users. Okay. So if you want anything else, it's just a matter of selecting the checkboxes. So tomorrow, if you'd like to elevate the permission of this role, you want this role to be manipulating the exchange attributes, just go ahead and select the exchange attributes right here. But for now, I'm just going to leave it unchecked. So this is a very basic rule. That's for user object management. Computer object management. So I want this role to create computers. Contact. I want this role to create contacts. Group. I want this role to create a group. Let's say file server management. I want this role to modify and remove NTFS permission but not share permissions. Alright, so I'm just going to leave it unchecked. Office 365. Now I want this role to add to existing license. I want this role to replace existing Office 365 license. But I don't want this role to remove any Office 365 licenses from my user accounts. So I'm just not going to grant that role here. Alright, so that's for management. Now talking about reports. So we have close to 200 reports that you can generate, but I don't want all 200 reports available for this role. I'm just going to give them few basic reports. So all users, report on all users, report on empty attributes, report on duplicate attributes so that they can check whether there are any users with the same attribute value in Active Directory. Report on logged out users and disabled users, and also inactive users. All right. And NTFS, so I have a report named shares in servers. That's going to give me the list of all the shares within a selected server and its permission. And then I have permission for folders. So I just want this role to be generating this report under the NTFS category. And administration, nothing under administration. So just management and reports. So I save this role for IT Tech. Successfully saved. It's right here. Now we have just created a list of actions that this role can perform, but we have not yet mapped this role to a user account in Active Directory. So the next step is mapping this role that we created to a user in Active Directory. And for that, I need to go to Help Desk Technicians. If I go to Help Desk Technicians, you have the built-in technicians here. You can add your Active Directory user as a technician within ADManager Plus. You go to Add New Technician. All right. And then this is where you select the Active Directory user that you're going to add as a technician. Select AD users. Let's say I'm going to search for a user named Vivin. The user is an Active Directory user. I hit OK. And then this is where I choose the role that we just created. The role that we created was named as role for IT Tech. And I'm going to search the role right here. Right. So if I just scroll down, I have the role that we just created, which is role for IT Tech. The other ones are going to be the built-in roles. I can even grant or map multiple roles to this technician, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to assign the role that we created, and I hit OK. Now, the next restriction that I can impose on this user account is I can delegate certain OUs for this user account. If I don't want this user account Vivin to be creating user accounts in all the OUs in my Active Directory infrastructure, I just go to add OUs, and then from the OU tree, I pick the OUs in which the user can create Active Directory accounts. So just 2 OUs, and I hit OK. All right, and then I hit save. That's it. So we have now successfully we have now successfully created a role with all the actions that we want and also all the restrictions that we want, and we have mapped that role to a technician or to an Active Directory user named Vivin. All right. Now, if you would like to elevate this user's permission or the role, it's just a matter of editing the technician here or editing the user, and you just go ahead and change another role or maybe map multiple roles for the user account and then hit OK. So that's how you do it. Now, apart from restricting certain OUs, all right, so we have just granted this technician the privilege of creating user account in 2 OUs out of the 10 that I have in my Active Directory domain. All right, so if you'd like to restrict certain groups as well, all right, you don't want this user to be manipulating accounts in the enterprise admin and the domain admin group. So all you need to do is just go to the excluded groups section, hit add, and then search for domain admins. Once you have it right here, hit OK. So which means you have not only excluded few OUs for this user account, you have also excluded certain groups. All right, so we were talking something about the templates as well. All right, so if you have 50 templates in your organization and you don't want this technician or this user to be using all that 50 templates, you want him to be using just one template. You would like to set that template as default. You just go to add or remove template and then select just one template here and set that template as default. It's right here. All right, now you see a green check mark, which means that this template is now set as default. The user will not have access to any other templates other than the ones that you have delegated. All right, so this is how you add a user to ADManager Plus and then assign them roles, restrict certain OUs, restrict certain groups. So we are talking about customized roles and at the same time granting those customized roles with all the restrictions that you want in place, and you hit save changes. That's it. Now this user can very well log into ADManager Plus from his laptop and then perform the actions that you have delegated. All right, so if I'd like to show you something here. So now that I have added a technician, all right, so let me quickly sign out and then sign in as the technician so that you will be able to see the difference for yourself. So I'm just going to hit sign out. I'm going to sign in with the technician's account. All right. So I am not typing an application account here. This is going to be the Active Directory domain credentials of that user account or of that technician. All right. So now if I log in as the technician here, so the technician has access only to the tasks that I have delegated. So you might notice that you don't have delegation, you don't have workflow, you don't have automation or the admin tab or anything else. It's just the things that we have delegated to the role. So if you just go to reports, yes, just few reports that we have delegated to the role will be present right here. So the rest of the fields are not there. So that's how powerful and secure this delegation feature is going to be. And if you'd like to elevate the role, I told you it's just a matter of selecting checkboxes. Okay, now that we have talked about roles and technicians and all that, so let's say you have 20 technicians and you have given them various roles in, within ADManager Plus, and they log in and they perform the actions. Now if you'd like to track the actions or audit the actions performed by those technicians, you have an audit section right here, audit report. So you go to audit report, and this audit report is going to give you the list of all the actions irrespective of the output. It can be either a failure or a success. So all the actions will be recorded in this section. All right. So if I'd like to find out the actions done by the user Vivin or the technician Vivin, I just go ahead and select the user right here, hit OK, and I would like to track the action done by this user account in the last 90 days, or let's say custom period. So I choose a start and finish time. It can either be 6 months or last 365 days, and the minute I hit choose and then I hit go, I would have all the actions done by the technician right here. Okay, for instance, this report tells me that the admin account of ADManager Plus has tried deleting user accounts, and this is the timestamp of the action, and the result of the action is going to be an access denied. All right, because the account did not have sufficient rights, and the account resulted in an access denied error message. So you'll be able to get any minute change done by the technicians of ADManager Plus. Now we have another section, admin audit report. All right. Now, the difference between audit report and admin audit report is audit report will give you the list of all the actions done by your technicians in Active Directory. But what if I add a new technician to ADManager Plus and I manipulate his roles, I grant him access to few OUs, so I do something within the application, not in Active Directory, but within the application. There also has to be a tracking mechanism for that as well. So the admin audit report is going to give you the list of all the changes done to your technicians within ADManager Plus. For instance, if I go to delegation and I edit the user Vivin and I add or remove a role from this technician and I hit OK and I hit save changes. So this is a change. Now this change will be recorded in the admin audit report. So if you just have a look at the change that we made, it's real time. So the admin, I've logged in with the admin account, so it says that the admin modified a help desk technician named Vivin, and this is going to be the timestamp of modification. And if I just hit the hyperlink here, this is going to give me the change that I made. Alright, so this gives you answers for who, what, when, and where. Alright, so that's how powerful the auditing section is. And if you'd like to get the list of roles mapped to a technician, the restrictions that you have imposed on a technician and all that, you have a separate reporting section for that as well. Alright, so that's delegation for you. So you create roles with any restrictions that you want, you map that to a technician, you audit the change, and also you audit any role that you want. So the next one is going to be automation. All right, so automation is something like, you tell the application to do stuff in Active Directory on a specific date and time. The application does it for you. Let's start with the very basic process of account creation. So I'm going to talk about two things here. One is account creation, and the second one is going to be user account cleanup. So I'm just going to start with the first process, which is account creation. I go to create new automation. All right, so let's say user account creation. All right, now I have something called automation and automation policy. I'll talk about automation policy in a short while. But the first task that I'm going to automate is I'm going to create users automatically. So I'm going to set the policies for automation here. So I can even automate the process of disabling users, enabling users, deleting users, and a lot more. But for now, I'm just going to stick to the default ones or the basic ones, which is create users. Okay. Now, let's say that the HR has recruited 5 new employees to my organization, and I want 5 new accounts to be created next Wednesday at 10 a.m. All right. So what I do is, as an administrator, I just go to the automation part and I create a new automation and I specify a template here. Okay, if all those 5 accounts are going to be created for a specific department and they have a specific job role, I just choose a common template. Else, I can even define the template in the CSV file, which we saw yesterday. All right, so I just choose a common template here. So this has all the attributes that I need to populate for the user accounts. And then the HR might be having a CSV file in the form of an Excel sheet or a notepad, and that has the name of the user accounts that are to be created. So what I do here is I specify the location of the CSV file. So the HR creates a CSV file and saves it in a network path. I specify the network path here. All right, and then I define the template that is to be applied. So when do I want the user account to be created? I want this account to be created, let's say on Tuesday. All right, so Tuesday at 10 a.m. So Tuesday, 10 a.m. All right, now I hit save. That's it. So the minute I hit save, the application will save the configurations that we have made, and Tuesday at 10 a.m. ADManager Plus or the automation will go to the location that we have defined, and then it will look for a CSV file. If there is a CSV file in the location, the application will read the information in the CSV file, and that should probably have the name of the user accounts, the newly recruited user accounts or employees. Now that, in combination with the user creation template, is going to create user accounts in Active Directory automatically. So you have the first name and the last name of the user account in the CSV file saved in a network path, and you have all the other configurations including Exchange, Office 365, group membership, OU, everything in place in the template. So when you bring these two things together, you can create any number of accounts in Active Directory with all the values you want. So, and then again, if you'd like to scale, you can just go ahead and create a cyclic process. Now, this automation would again execute every Tuesday at 10 a.m. So if there are any new users added to the CSV file by the HR, the accounts will be created in Active Directory. Now, the same can be done for deprovisioning user accounts in Active Directory. So let me give you a quick example here when I say deprovisioning user accounts. All right, so you might be an administrator or an IT technician of an organization that has anywhere between 100 and 20,000 or even 100,000 employees, right? Any IT organization will definitely have certain users who are inactive. In the sense, users who have not logged into your Active Directory for, let's say, the last 60 days or 120 days or even 300 days. But those accounts will still remain enabled and active in your Active Directory infrastructure. That's not good from a security standpoint. So you might have to remove those accounts from Active Directory. So I'm not saying delete those accounts from Active Directory immediately. No, that's not my point here. What you can do is you can find out the users who are inactive in your Active Directory infrastructure and then maybe move them to a separate OU. Isolate those inactive accounts. And you can also, for security reasons, remove the users from all the groups that they are a member of. And you can wait for another 30 days and then disable the accounts. And wait for another 30 days and delete the accounts from Active Directory. So deprovisioning can be done in a sequence. And if you're going to do it manually, there are always chances of human error. So you can automate the process that I just explained, and the automation policy is where you go in order to define the sequence that I just told you. All right, so I just go to automation policy here. I create a new automation policy. So I just name it as cleanup AD inactive users. All right. Now the first task that I want to be performed or to be automated is I would like to move those inactive users to an OU that I want. So I just choose an OU and I want those users to be moved to that OU. All right. So I have the tree view here. I'm just going to move them to a separate OU. Done. Now, after moving them to a separate OU, I'd like to wait for 5 days and then remove those users from all the groups that they are a member of, because some of these inactive users might be administrators or might be part of the enterprise admin groups or domain admins group. So which means I'll have to first make sure that they are removed from all the groups that they are part of. So that's what the second sequence or the second task in this policy does. Removes the users from all the groups that they are a member of. And I'd like to wait for 30 days and then disable the users. Wait for another 30 days or 45 days and then delete the accounts from Active Directory. So we have 4 actions here. Move users, remove from group, disable users, and then delete those users from Active Directory. So I hit save. Now I have just defined the sequence of actions here, but I have not executed the automation yet. Now in order to execute the sequence that we have just defined, I go back to automation, I create a new automation, and then I select the policy that we just defined. I go to select automation policy, clean up AD inactive users is something that we created. It has all the sequence that we want. Now I need to actually provide an input so that the application can find out the users who are inactive. All right. Now the input is going to be in the form of a report, a built-in report. So if I just go to select, so I have n number of reports right here that I can pick and choose from. But talking about our condition or our scenario right here, I want the application to find out inactive users for the last 300 days. So I choose the inactive users report. It's right here. And I'd like to find out the users who are inactive for the last 300 days. So 300 days, I hit OK. Now since this is going to be an Active Directory cleanup process, I would like this to be scheduled on a monthly basis. All right. So on the 15th or on the 10th of every month at 4 p.m. All right. Now every month on the 10th at 4 p.m. ADManager Plus will generate the inactive users report for the last 300 days, and then it will execute the policy that we have just created. Right? So that's about the automation and automation policy. So policy is something like a sequence. So you define a sequence of actions and then you map that sequence to the automation in order to execute the sequence. All right? So that's how you do it. Now, whenever I talk about automation, there might be few administrators or IT technicians who might be a bit skeptical about leaving things to an application. So you might not want to perform, you might not want an application to be performing actions in Active Directory without your approval or supervision. So you might want to supervise these actions even before they take place in Active Directory. So you might want this application to raise a request instead of actually performing an action, so that you as a reviewer or you as an executor, you go through the request, and if you find that the request list is valid, you just hit approve or execute, and then the action takes place in Active Directory. You might want to implement a request and approve methodology for an automated process. That's when you have the small checkbox coming to help you. Now this checkbox here, if you select the checkbox which reads implement business workflow, the action that you are trying to automate will be raised as a request, and then it will be forwarded to the workflow section of ADManager Plus. So the requester here in our case is going to be the automation, and the automation is going to raise a request to the next level of approval. All right, the next level can be a reviewer, or approver, or even executor. And if you think that these three levels of approvals are too much for your organization, you just need to cut it down to one level of approval. You just edit the workflow and bring it down to one level of approval. That's it. So you have the automation raising a request. The executor gets notified stating that a request is raised. The executor has a look at the request. If the request is valid, the executor says OK, and the action takes place in Active Directory. As simple as that. A requester can be associated to an automation like the one that we just discussed, or it can even be a manual requester. So when I say a manual requester, a HR can log into this tool and then create a request for all these actions that you see right here. So if the HR wants to raise a request for user account creation, instead of them creating an Excel sheet, they just log into the create request portal. They hit single user creation. They just type the first name and the last name of the user account, and instead of create, they have something else which reads create request. Alright, so they raise a request. They do not create accounts directly in AD. They raise a request by logging into ADManager Plus. And if you want to customize this layout for a requester, you think that these many tabs are not required for a requester, you'd like to keep it simple, you have the templates right here. So you can define your own layout, own customizable layout. If you want that layout to be having just 10 attributes, a simple form that they can use for raising request, you can very well define a template and assign the template to a requester. So when the requester or the HR, when they log into this tool, they just have access to the 10 attributes. That's it. They raise a request. Again, that gets forwarded to the next level of approval, and when the reviewer says OK, it gets forwarded to the approver approves, it gets forwarded to the executor says OK, the account gets created in Active Directory. And since this is going to be a request and approve methodology, you have notification rules that will notify the appropriate or the concerned people in the list or in the hierarchy, and you can also assign tickets based on actions if you want. So if you want the creation request to be assigned to a user A and user deletion request to be assigned to an IT administrator, you can define the assigning rules right here. Alright, so a quick recap on the things that we discussed in today's session. So we saw about delegation, how do you create customized roles and map those roles to users. We also saw how to audit the changes done by your technicians of ADManager Plus. Automation, how do you create users and clean up Active Directory and perform other stuffs using the automation. Workflow is all about a request and approve methodology. Now apart from that, yesterday we saw something about Active Directory management. How do you create users in bulk? How do you manage them? Manage their mailboxes, Office 365. How do you perform a permission cleanup and assign or remove Office 365 licenses from inactive accounts and all that. Reports, we discuss about crucial reports on how to get things from Active Directory with just few mouse clicks. Alright, so you can very well make use of the help link right here. So you have the help link in the top right. So if you just go to the help link has pretty much everything that you need to know related to the application. That includes the troubleshooting tips and also the frequently asked questions. Alright, now if you'd like to get in touch with our tech team here for any technical assistance related to the application, just go to the support tab. So you can initiate a live chat session with our tech team here. You can drop an email to us, or if you have a request for a new feature that is not there in the application, you just go ahead and fill the form and send it out to us. And you have our forums, our knowledge bases, and this is where you go to upgrade the application to the latest version. Alright, now for any queries related to the application, the email address that you should be shooting an email to is going to be support@admanagerplus.com. So once again, thank you very much for joining both the sessions in this evaluation series. I hope the session was useful for you. If you have any questions, please get in touch with us. We are more than happy to help you. Thank you. You have a nice day. Bye-bye.